Everybody, this is Perch. Here's a question to the show. It goes, hey, Perch, it feels inevitable that the world's about to enter a recession. I think strictly by the numbers, I believe we have. We've definitely entered into bear territory with the market and with the still surging inflation, the higher interest rates. Yeah, we're in a recession, even if we're not calling it, but definitely we're headed there, and a long, protracted one. Putting this bluntly, putting this bluntly, in a recession, a $5 monthly comic, which you've said all books may soon be at, around androgynous teens milling around and eating food isn't going to sell. I'll be more harsh than that. A $5 monthly comic featuring nearly anything isn't going to sell. If suddenly you got Chris Claremont and John Byrne to come back and do Dark Phoenix Saga 2, first of all, nobody wants that. But if you, I mean, I want them back, but I do not want Dark Phoenix 2. If you had that, I still think you'd have a hard time charging $5 a month for it. I just do. It's the price point is tough. But definitely people milling around eating lunch is not going to work either. All right. A monthly comic about a muscle-bound superhero beating up monsters will. Yes, I should have read that second sentence before I interrupted. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. But let's read the rest of your mail and I'll stop interrupting here. It feels like the smart thing to do right now will be to cut total titles, but boost the number of ongoing, simplify your lineup in your universe, and I suppose a price hike is inevitable. Start shilling out for some big names to come back to spearhead your universe, because God knows if there was a time to get some press for your comic universe, right now is probably that time. If I'm DC right now, I'd be strongly considering getting a Mark Millar Justice League series going ASAP, putting Jurgens, Tomasi, Morrison, Johns, if possible, on more ongoings of their choice and cut the lowest selling titles. It feels like it's a time right now to get lean and mean, perhaps increase the output of reprints. I think DC is smart to have a bunch of Black Adam trades drop in line with the movie, by the way. Yes, they are. Thank God somebody's doing that. But I have another question, which is kind of baked in, which is, coming out of this recession, do you expect the big two will learn the right lessons, or will they go right back to the pre-recession status quo? Do you agree with my assessment, or hope to do, or do you think the trick is to weather the storm is a different strategy? Okay, the last sentence got kind of messy there. So definitely we're headed into recession. I think that $5 books are going to be a tough go of it. I think that, so here's where it's like put up or shut up time, in my view. So we've heard that the studios view the comic industry and comics as IP generators, that basically the purpose of them is to create relatively cheap stories that can be market tested and pave the way for more expensive movie productions that go out into the theaters. That's what people have said. That's what the speculation has been. And Marvel/Disney has pretty much confirmed that that's how they're viewing things right now. Okay, so here comes the put up or shut up time. Are you willing, meaning Disney, to increase the budget that you're giving to comics in order to pull in bigger name creators in order to get the attention? Because, wearing my NBA hat here for a minute, here's the way I would be playing this business right now. If we're headed into a recession, I would basically sit around the table and say, all right, comic books are coming out of marketing budget, meaning we are not expecting any return. This is an operating at a loss business. To be clear, I'm talking about Marvel and DC. The other companies do not have the luxury of being this way. However, if you get a stable Marvel and DC, that in turn does help the indies to also find an avenue to sell their books. But regardless, I would say, look, this is about to go into a cost-only business. Our goal over the next 2 years, the best way to use a recession is to grab attention. Basically, grab eyeballs, build the IP, build the business, which means we're going to lose money, but we're going to gain users. In many ways, it's a very similar strategy to a startup tech company who's going into software as a service, or SaaS. They basically spend money on user acquisition. They forget completely about making money. There's the board of several of these small companies, and I've been fortunate enough to be on the advisory board of a couple companies. They will tell you, when you're starting out new, when you're a tiny little startup, what you will often have is a market strategy where they tell you, we don't want you reporting at all on the profits. We want you to estimate your loss, meaning you're going to operate with you're going to lose 8 million a year because that's the money that's going to be sunk into user acquisition and various other things. We want to see that your estimate of how much money you're going to lose is accurate, that you are holding to that budget. So if you're going to basically say, I'm going to spend $2 million this year, $2 million at a loss, in order to acquire users, what I, as a board member, would want to see was, number one, did you spend $2 million or did you spend 3 or did you spend 1? By the way, whether you spent 1 million or 3 million, both of those are actually the wrong answer. At this stage in a company's life, the only right answer is that you estimated and you estimated properly. So again, if you estimated 2 million loss, I want to see that you spent 2 million on the dot. That tells me you're fiscally responsible. That tells me that you are good at estimating. That tells me that you're working along your plan. The second thing I would want to see is to say, what is your user acquisition plan? What's your target? How many users, meaning in this case customers, are you going to be acquiring during this period? Are you, are you going to basically make money or lose money during this period? Are you going, if you say you're going to acquire 1,000 customers, then I want to see those 1,000 customers. If you say I'm going to acquire, 5 customers, and you acquire 500, then my assumption here is that, it's good news, you acquired users faster, but it also tells me, again, you're bad at estimating. If you're bad at estimating, that makes me worry about your financial plan, and generally speaking, companies will look to hire a different CIO, CFO to come in and right the ship. And many companies have fallen into this trap, by the way, where they've overperformed in this entry stage, and they get in trouble over it, and they don't understand why. It doesn't make any sense. Hey, I wait a minute, I told you I was going to spend 2 million to get 100 users, and I spent 1 million and got 500. The proper board member would look at that and go, you're not good at planning. And if you're this bad at planning, then that tells me if, what would have happened if you would have spent the whole 2 million? Could have you gotten 2,000 users? Would have been higher? Do you not know how to spend your money? Or did you cheat somehow? Did you accidentally go into a place where you artificially got more users than you planned? And if that's the case, then, so all these things come into effect of planning and managing a business. That's how people look at this stuff. So anyway, if I was the company right now, what I would be doing is I would be pushing really, really hard for these groups to say, we know you're going to lose money. That's okay. Stop making a profit and go for customers. I want to see the average readers at a DC comic or a Marvel comic go from 35,000 to 55,000. That's what I want to see over the next 2 years. To do that, I want you to cut titles, don't produce as much, eliminate market confusion, get rid of anything that confuses your customer, get rid of anything that makes people wonder, like, oh, am I supposed to buy this Batman or Detective? I mean, honestly, if you're heading into a recession and you think it's truly going to be brutal, meaning it's going to be very, very rough roads for a while, I would start having questions of, hey, if I'm growing users to a bunch of new comic readers, does having a title called Detective Comics and Batman confuse people? I would ask those questions. I would be extremely aggressive in getting a trimmed down line that was neat, that was clean, that anyone without thinking about it could pick up and run with. Because your goal is to go for certainty. Your goal is to first of all, look who's giving you money right now, meaning the long-term collectors. Make sure they're happy, but reduce books, and then find very, very sharp ways to go to new users, and measure aggressively and relentlessly to get your new customers in the door. If you put out a book and it doesn't move the needle at all, then cancel the book and fire your marketing department and figure out where it's going wrong. Get into new businesses. And then you mentioned it about creative talent. Absolutely creative talent. And quite frankly, if you're DC right now, one of the smartest moves you could make would be to go to Mark. One of the greatest moves you could do would be to go to Mark Millar and say, hey, I would say you are the writer of Civil War. Marvel made a lot of money with that, and that was the basis behind, their cinematic universe and everything else. I want you to come in, and you are going to be the new writer for Justice League. So we're going to give you the title. I know you currently work for Miller World. We're going to give you the artist of your choice, or kind of do what Marvel did in the late 90s, say you pick the artist. You could run this as an imprint. We'll give you a royalty off of it, but we're going to hand the keys to you. Your goal is to give us red hot IP. So, and this may be where Mark Millar wouldn't be the guy to go to, but I would say, I don't want crazy ideas. I don't want to, you can't deconstruct and ruin the world. I need something that is going to be an amazing adventure story, completely solid core, absolutely big stuff. You can't, you can't kill off Superman or replace him with a bug version of himself. Not that Mark would do that, but I mean, you need to give us something that the masses would recognize, that collectors will love, and spend a ton of money to do it, and absolutely, frame it up that we are going to lose money. We're going to lose money for a period of time because we are going to actually put our money where our mouth is and create that IP that we think are going to make billion-dollar movies and franchises and stuff that we're going to care about forever. The counter argument, by the way, that people often give is, you don't need the comics to do that. I mean, in all honesty, screw the comics. Just make good movies, and who cares? I get it. There's some truth to that statement, but it's still not perfect, and it's not entirely true. Market testing with comics is not a bad idea, and the money is so small. I mean, the regular marketing budget of these companies dwarfs anything they're going to spend on comics. But having that material out there and getting that attention and getting that buzz and getting that momentum is useful. It gives them a platform and a backdrop to basically help sell their own properties, to help market their movies. So I think it's worth doing. It's just, you can't. My observation with comics right now is that you're basically saying, hey, we don't expect to make a lot of money on this. It's IP generation for the movies. But we're also going to cut the budget really slim. We're going to tell the property holders there to go overseas to get cheaper talent, and we're going to throw zero marketing dollars into anything, and everything will be fine. That's kind of the approach they take. So unfortunately, that's a dumb business plan, because if you're going to lose money to grow users, then you're going to have a reasonable budget, and I think comics does not. And it's just not taken seriously. If it is truly meant to be the launching pad for billion-dollar properties, you got to treat it with that respect. Meaning, you need better people, you need good portfolio managers, you need to have better budget that makes everything happen. But I do think so. That's my take. To the point of your mail, I think we're in a. It's about it. It's not about. It is getting very ugly out there, and so absolutely. We've got to figure out how to make comics, for all intents and purposes, recession-proof, or at least put it in a position where it can weather the recession and do something powerful with it. The last part of your question was, do I think that the companies will be able to launch out of this in an intelligent way? And my answer is no, not at all, not without new leadership. You need strong leadership, you need good business acumen, and then yes, you absolutely can launch out of it successfully. But we just went through COVID and a pandemic, and you had enough distraction at DC where the people at DC had the ability to pretty much do whatever they wanted. To actually, put out they changed away from Diamond, they made a bunch of changes to their company, and yet you still had leadership that was asleep at the wheel, doing nothing with this opportunity they were given. So do I think that they'd come out of a recession strong? No, I think they'll come out of it stupid and weak, because I don't think they're going to use this time wisely. Several companies are going to use this moment in time, this recession, as a way to recapitalize their funds, as a way to buy stuff on the cheap, as a way to become more powerful. It's definitely possible to do that, but that's not the pace we're currently on. Anyway, thank you very much for the question. I hope all of our accounts survive this coming recession, and thanks for listening.